The morning sky on Kepler 442b was different from Earth. 3 suns rose at different times, painting the horizon in shades of orange, pink, and gold. Jiho stood on his balcony watching the light spread across the valley below. He held a cup of coffee in his hands, steam rising into the cool air. Below him, the colony stretched out like a small city. Metal buildings reflected the sunlight. Green farms covered the hillsides. In the distance, wind turbines spun slowly. This place had been his home for 10 years now. He remembered arriving on the first transport ship when everything was new and uncertain. Back then, there were only 500 people and a handful of prefab shelters. Now 12,000 colonists called this world home. They had built schools, hospitals, factories, and farms. Children who had been born here had never seen Earth. This was their world. His daughter Nari came running out onto the balcony. She was 8 years old with bright eyes and messy hair. In her hand, she clutched a glowing blue crystal. She had found it yesterday while exploring caves with her school group. "Dad, look, it's still glowing," she said, holding it up to the light. Jiho smiled and knelt down to examine it. The crystal pulsed with a soft blue light, like a tiny star in her palm. "That's amazing, sweetheart. You should show it to Dr. Samin at the research center. She studies minerals. Can we go today?" Nari asked, bouncing on her toes. "Maybe this afternoon. I have to check the defense grid first." Jiho was the colony's security commander. It was mostly a quiet job. The biggest problems he dealt with were equipment failures and the occasional dispute between settlers. There had never been a real threat. Nari hugged him and ran back inside to get ready for school. Jiho watched her go, feeling grateful. Life here was good, safe, peaceful. The colony had good relations with their neighbors. The Vakari Empire was the closest alien civilization, spanning 14 star systems. They were proud and ancient, with technology that made human innovations look primitive. But they had always been civil. 30 years ago, when humans first met the Vakari, there had been concerns. Some thought the aliens would see humans as inferior or dangerous. Instead, treaties were signed. Trade began. Humans learned from Vakari science and art. The Vakari seemed content to let humanity explore and expand. Recently, there had been some tension. A survey team had discovered a rich asteroid belt full of rare minerals. The problem was that the belt sat right on the border between human and Vakari space. Old maps were unclear. Both sides claimed ownership. Diplomats from Earth were negotiating with the Vakari High Council. It was the kind of bureaucratic headache that took months to resolve, but nobody expected violence. The galaxy had rules. Civilized species talked through their problems. Jiho finished his coffee and went to his office in the command center. The building sat on a hill overlooking the colony. Inside, screens showed various system status. Everything was green. The defense satellites were operational. The 2 patrol ships, small frigates called Horizon and Dawn, were on routine patrol near the system's edge. Their pilots, Hyun and Mira, checked in every hour. Life was normal. He spent the morning reviewing supply requests and updating security protocols. At lunch, he met with his deputy Kwan to discuss expanding the perimeter sensors. They ate sandwiches while talking about detection ranges and power consumption. Boring technical work. The kind of work that meant nothing bad was happening. That afternoon, he picked up Nari from school and took her to see Dr. Soman. The research center was a low building near the edge of town, filled with equipment and samples from across the planet. Dr. Soman was excited about the glowing crystal. She ran tests while Nari watched, explaining how the crystal's structure trapped light and released it slowly. "Can I keep it?" Nari asked. "Of course," Dr. Soman said. "There are thousands of these in the caves. But this is a particularly nice specimen. Take good care of it." On the way home, Nari held the crystal carefully in both hands. "Dad, do you think we'll live here forever?" Jiho thought about it. "Maybe. Or maybe someday you'll want to explore other worlds. That's the great thing about being human now. We have choices. We can go anywhere." That evening, the family had dinner together. Jiho's wife Yoonji worked as a teacher at the primary school. She told them about her students' progress. Nari talked about wanting to be a scientist like Dr. Somin. They laughed and ate and made plans for the weekend. A hiking trip to the northern lakes. Jiho made a note to pack extra water and sunscreen. After Nari went to bed, Jiho stood on the balcony again. The 3 suns had set. Above, unfamiliar stars filled the sky. Earth was out there somewhere, 42 light-years away. He had left it behind to build something new, to give his daughter a future among the stars. Looking at the peaceful colony below, he felt proud of what they had accomplished. Kepler 442b wasn't in the disputed zone. It was 3 full systems away from the asteroid belt controversy. The colony was protected by treaties that both humans and Vakari had signed. There was no reason for concern. The diplomatic issues would resolve themselves eventually. Meanwhile, life went on. Jiho went to bed that night without worry. The defense grid was operational. The patrol ships were on schedule. The colony was safe. He fell asleep thinking about the weekend hiking trip, about showing Nari the bioluminescent plants that grew near the lakes. He had no way of knowing that the Vakari High Council had made a decision. They had grown tired of human expansion. The dispute over the asteroid belt was just an excuse. They wanted to send a message. A demonstration of power, a reminder of who held authority in this region of space. They chose Kepler 442b because it was isolated, because it was far from major human military bases, because its destruction would hurt without triggering an immediate retaliation. It was a calculated move, a show of dominance. 7 Vakari warships were already accelerating toward the system. They would arrive in 16 hours. Their orders were clear and simple. Leave nothing alive. Make it visible. Make it hurt. Jiho slept peacefully, unaware that the last normal day of his life was ending. Tomorrow everything would change. The colony would be tested. Humanity would be tested. And the galaxy would learn that mercy, when mistaken for weakness, could become something far more terrible. But tonight, there was only peace. 3 suns would rise in the morning. Nari would wake up excited about her glowing crystal. Jiho would make coffee and watch the light spread across the valley. For a few more hours, life was still simple. Still good. Still safe. The crystal on Nari's nightstand pulsed with soft blue light, casting gentle shadows on the walls of her room. Outside, the colony slept under strange stars. Somewhere in the darkness beyond, death was coming. But for now, there was only the quiet breath of sleeping families and the distant hum of machinery keeping them alive on an alien world they had learned to call home. The alarm started screaming at 6:47 in the morning. Jiho was reviewing supply reports when every screen in the command center turned red. Warning lights flashed across the walls. The automated defense system had detected multiple hostile contacts entering the system at high speed. 7 ships, Quan shouted from his station. Vakari signatures. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system edge. Jiho's blood went cold. 7 warships. The colony had 2 small patrol frigates. This wasn't a fight they could win. Get Hyun and Mira on the line. Tell them to intercept and buy us time. Start evacuation protocols immediately. The command center exploded into activity. People ran to their stations. Voices overlapped as orders were given. The evacuation alarm began wailing across the colony. Outside, Jiho could see people emerging from buildings, confused and frightened. The patrol ships Horizon and Dawn turned toward the incoming threat. They were small vessels, designed for customs inspections and rescue operations, not combat. But their pilots were brave. Hyun's voice came through the speakers, calm despite the situation. Command, we're accelerating to intercept. Maybe we can make them think twice. Negative, Jiho said, his throat tight. Your orders are to delay only. Do not engage directly. Fall back if they... The screen showed the Vakari ships opening fire. Plasma bolts crossed the distance between the vessels in seconds. The Horizon shields flared bright blue, then collapsed. The ship came apart in a silent explosion of metal and fire. Mira's panicked voice cut through. They just killed Hyun. They didn't even warn us. The dawn lasted 15 seconds longer. Then it too was gone, reduced to debris and expanding gas. The command center went silent. Everyone stared at the screens in shock. Those ships had carried people they knew. Hyun had 2 children. Mira had just gotten engaged. They were gone. Just like that. No warning. No mercy. Time to impact? Jiho asked, his voice flat. 43 minutes, Quan said quietly. 43 minutes. Jiho looked at the evacuation status. 12,000 people. 3 transport ships that could carry maybe 2,000 total, and they needed at least an hour to launch. The nearest human outpost was 2 weeks away at maximum speed. There was no escape. There was no rescue coming in time. He grabbed the colony-wide communication system. This is Commander Jiho. We are under attack by Vakari forces. All civilians are to proceed to the underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Take only what you can carry. Help your neighbors, stay calm. Move quickly. His hand shook as he released the button. He thought of Nari, she was at school. Yoonji would be with her students. He pulled up his personal communicator and called his wife. Yoonji answered immediately. Jiho, what's happening? The alarms, get Nari and go to Shelter 7. It's the deepest one. Take the students with you. I'll come as soon as I can. Jiho, you're scaring me. I know. I love you. Both of you. Please just go, now. He ended the call before she could respond. Outside, he watched the colony descend into controlled chaos. People ran through the streets carrying children and bags. Some helped elderly neighbors. Others stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Security teams tried to maintain order, directing traffic toward the shelters. The Vakari ships were 30 minutes away now. Jiho had sent out a distress signal, but help wouldn't arrive for weeks. He tried hailing the Vakari fleet, hoping to negotiate or at least understand why this was happening. There was no response. They were coming in silence, weapons charged, intent clear. Sir, we're reading their weapon systems, Quan said. They're targeting our power stations first. They're going to take out the grid, a systematic attack. Not random. They had planned this. Jiho felt rage building beneath his fear. This colony had never threatened anyone. They were farmers and scientists and teachers. They had children and families and dreams. And the Vakari were going to kill them all to make a point about a territorial dispute 3 systems away. The first strike came exactly on time. A lance of superheated plasma struck the main power station on the northern ridge. The explosion lit up the sky. The lights in the command center flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, but half the screens went dark. They're hitting the communication arrays, someone shouted. The colony's connection to the outside universe was being systematically destroyed. Nobody would even know what happened here until it was too late. More strikes followed. The solar farm exploded in a chain reaction. The water treatment plant was vaporized. Each hit was precise and devastating. The Vakari weren't trying to conquer, they were trying to erase. Then they started hitting the residential areas. Jiho watched the screens as his world died. Buildings he had helped construct vanished in flashes of fire. Streets where children played became craters. The hospital where Nari was born collapsed into rubble. Each explosion represented lives ended, families destroyed, futures canceled. Shelter 7 is holding. Quan reported quietly. Shields are intact. But Shelters 2, 4, and 9 took direct hits. They're gone. Thousands dead already. Jiho felt numb. This wasn't war. This was murder. The bombardment continued for 47 minutes. When it finally stopped, the colony was gone. Fires burned everywhere. The air was thick with smoke and dust. The beautiful valley that had been home to 12,000 people was now a smoking wasteland. The Vakari ships didn't land. They simply broadcast a message on all frequencies. A holographic image appeared on the few working screens. A Vakari commander stood in front of their High Council's symbol. The translation came through in cold mechanical tones. This colony has been destroyed in response to human territorial aggression. Let this serve as a warning. The disputed regions belong to the Vakari Empire. Any further human expansion will be met with similar force. We are the elder civilization. You will respect our authority. The message ended. The ships turned and jumped back into faster-than-light travel, leaving only destruction behind. Jiho sat in the dark command center, surrounded by the bodies of his staff. Most had been killed when a plasma bolt hit the building's east wing. He had survived only because he was on the other side of the room. His ears rang. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead, but he was alive. He stumbled outside. The 3 suns were rising, painting the devastation in beautiful colors that felt obscene. He made his way toward Shelter 7, climbing over rubble, past bodies, through smoke. The shelter's entrance was buried. He dug with his bare hands until others came to help. It took 3 hours to clear the entrance. The shelter had held, but the life support had failed. Everyone inside had suffocated in the dark. Jiho found Yoonji near the door, her arms wrapped around Nari. His daughter still clutched the glowing crystal. It pulsed with soft blue light, the only brightness in the tomb. Jiho sat down in the dirt and held them both. He didn't cry. He couldn't. There was only a vast emptiness inside him where his family used to be. Around him, survivors wandered through the ruins, calling for loved ones, searching for anyone left alive. But there were so few, maybe a few hundred out of 12,000. The rescue ships arrived 2 weeks later, They found a graveyard. The galaxy would soon learn what had happened on Kepler 442b, and humanity would have to decide what kind of species they wanted to be. The kind that accepted this atrocity, or the kind that made the Vakari regret it for the rest of their civilization's existence. The news reached Earth 3 days after the attack. The footage was transmitted from a rescue ship's cameras. It showed everything: the destroyed buildings, the burned farms, the bodies in the streets, 12,000 people dead, an entire colony erased as if it had never existed. The footage played on every screen across human space. People watched in silence as the camera moved through what had been a thriving community. A playground with melted swing sets, a school with its roof collapsed, small shoes scattered in the dirt. The Vakari message played at the end, cold and arrogant, explaining that this was punishment for human territorial aggression. The United Earth Assembly called an emergency session. Every nation sent representatives. Every colony had observers present. The Great Assembly Hall in Geneva filled with the leaders of humanity. There were 4 billion people on Earth. Another 2 billion spread across Mars, Titan, Europa, and dozens of smaller colonies. All of them waited to see what their leaders would decide. Secretary General Tajin stood at the podium. He was a small man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire career working for peace, building bridges between nations, negotiating treaties, proving that humanity could solve problems without violence. Now he stood before the assembly with images of dead children projected on the walls behind him. For 200 years, he began, his voice quiet but clear. We have tried to be better than our history. We have built a civilization based on cooperation, not conquest. We have shown the galaxy that humans can be peaceful, that we can be trusted, that we deserve a place among the stars. He paused, looking at the images behind him. A little girl's teddy bear in the rubble, a family photo half buried in ash. The Vakari have answered our peace with massacre. They killed 12,000 civilians to make a point. They murdered children to show their power. They destroyed a colony that never threatened them, that existed far from any disputed territory. They did this deliberately, systematically, and then they told us it was our fault. The assembly was silent. Every person there had seen the footage. Many had tears on their faces. Others sat with clenched fists and hard eyes. We have a choice to make, Tajin continued. We can accept this. We can bow our heads and withdraw from the disputed zone. We can let the Vakari believe that killing our people is an acceptable way to resolve disagreements. We can teach the galaxy that humanity will tolerate anything to avoid war. He looked across the assembly, meeting the eyes of the representatives, or we can remind them what humans are capable of when pushed too far. Admiral Suho stepped forward. He commanded Earth Fleet, the military force that humanity had maintained even during its 2 centuries of peace. Nobody had expected to actually need it. Most of the ships were used for rescue operations and asteroid mining. But they existed, and they had been quietly preparing for the possibility of war since the day humans first met an alien species. Suho was a tall man with a military bearing. His son Junho had been a botanist on Kepler 442b, studying how to adapt Earth crops to alien soil. He had been 26 years old. His body had been found in the agricultural center, still holding a datapad with his research notes. Earth Fleet can be fully mobilized within 3 weeks, Suho said. His voice showed no emotion. We have 300 capital ships, 800 support vessels, and 4 million personnel. We have weapons that we have never shown the galaxy. Weapons that we hoped we would never need to use. The Vakari believe themselves superior because they are ancient and we are young. They are about to learn why Earth's history is full of wars. A murmur ran through the assembly. Some people looked frightened. Others looked determined. Everyone understood what was being proposed. Totalvar, not a limited engagement, not a defensive action. War Representative Gina from the Mars colonies stood up. What about the other species? The Galactic Council will condemn us. They'll say we're too violent, too dangerous. This is exactly what they feared about letting humans expand into space. The Galactic Council did nothing when 12,000 humans were murdered, Tajin replied. They issued a statement expressing concern. They called for both sides to show restraint, as if we attacked ourselves, as if the victims share responsibility for their own deaths. The galaxy had a chance to stand with us. They chose neutrality. So we stand alone? Gina asked. We always have, Suho said. The galaxy tolerates us because we are useful. We trade, we explore, we share our discoveries, but we were never truly accepted. We were always the young species, the violent primitives who needed to be watched. The Vakari felt comfortable attacking us because they thought nobody would care. They thought we would accept it because we had no choice. He pulled up a holographic display showing military projections, fleet movements, resource allocations, casualty estimates. We have a choice, he continued. We can prove them right. We can show the galaxy that humans will tolerate anything, that our peace was weakness, that killing our children has no consequences. The display changed, showing the Vakari Empire's 14 star systems. Or we can show them what humans become when you murder our families. The debate lasted 18 hours. Some argued for restraint, for sanctions and diplomatic pressure, for proving that humanity was better than its violent past. Others argued that the Vakari had already proven diplomacy was useless, that peace only worked when both sides wanted it, that sometimes the only way to stop a bully was to hit back harder than they hit you. In the end, the vote was called. Every representative pushed their button. The count appeared on the main screen. The motion to authorize military action against the Vakari Empire passed unanimously. Every nation, every colony, every single representative voted yes. There was no celebration, no cheering, just a grim acknowledgement of what had to be done. Tajan stood at the podium one more time. Let the record show that humanity chose this path not out of hatred, but out of necessity. We gave the galaxy 2 centuries of peace. We proved we could be better. The Vakari chose to spit on that peace. They chose to murder our children, and now they will learn that mercy is not weakness. It is a gift, and gifts can be taken back. The declaration of war was broadcast across all human worlds. People watched as their leaders explained what was coming. There would be casualties. There would be sacrifice. There would be darkness ahead. But there would also be justice. The Vakari had started this. Humanity would finish it. Across human space, military bases activated. Ships were pulled from civilian service and fitted with weapons. Scientists who had been working on peaceful projects were redirected to military research. Soldiers who had been training for missions they never expected to fly prepared for actual combat. The Vakari High Council received humanity's declaration with contempt. They had crushed 17 species in their long history. Humans were newcomers, barely capable of reaching nearby stars. The Vakari had been traveling between worlds for 3,000 years. They commanded fleets that numbered in the thousands. They possessed technology that made human innovations look primitive. They expected a short war, a few battles, some human defeats, then surrender and submission. They would force harsh terms, take territory, impose tribute, ensure that humanity never forgot their place in the galactic order. They had no idea what was coming. They had never studied human history. They didn't know about the world wars, the genocides, the nuclear weapons, the chemical attacks, the millions dead in conflicts over resources, ideology, and territory. They didn't understand that humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other, and had only recently decided to try something different. The mask of mercy was about to come off, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity had been hiding underneath it all along. The first response fleet jumped into the Helios sector exactly 3 weeks after the declaration of war. 300 human warships appeared in formation, their weapons charged, their crews ready. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the destroyer Retribution, watching the Vakari fortress system appear on his screens. The fortress had protected this trade route for 700 years. Massive orbital platforms ringed the system's star. Battle stations bristled with weapons. Defensive satellites formed a web of overlapping fire zones. It was a masterpiece of military engineering, designed to hold against any attack. All ships weapons free. Admiral Suho's voice came through the fleet channel. Remember Kepler 442b, no mercy. The Vakari defenders responded immediately. Plasma fire streaked across the void. Missiles accelerated toward the human fleet. Energy shields flared as hits connected. 3 human cruisers took heavy damage in the first minute. 1 frigate was destroyed outright, its crew of 200 dead before they could react. The Vakari had been fighting wars for 3,000 years. Their tactics were refined. Their weapons were powerful. Their shields could absorb incredible punishment. For 10 minutes it looked like the fortress might hold. Then humanity stopped fighting according to the rules. Deho watched as the kinetic bombardment platforms activated. These were simple weapons. Just tungsten rods accelerated to a fraction of light speed using magnetic rails. No explosives. No fancy technology, just mass and velocity. The rods hit the Vakari battle stations like the hammer of an angry god. Shields designed to absorb energy weapons did nothing against solid metal, moving at incredible speed. The stations came apart, their structure unable to withstand the kinetic impact. Next came the electromagnetic pulse weapons. Massive bursts of electromagnetic radiation washed over the Vakari defenders. Their sophisticated computer systems, their advanced sensors, their automated defenses all failed at once. Ships went dark, floating helpless in space. Weapons platforms became useless metal shells. The Vakari tried to retreat. Their commanders ordered the remaining functional ships to jump to faster than light speed and escape. But when they activated their jump drives, they discovered that the humans had mined all the jump points, special mines that detected the energy signature of a ship preparing to jump and detonated specifically to disrupt the process. Ships trying to escape tore themselves apart as their drives failed catastrophically. "These tactics are barbaric," his tactical officer said quietly, watching Vakari ships die on the screens. "So was Kepler 442b, Deho replied. He thought of the footage he had seen. Children's bodies in the rubble. Families who died holding each other. They started this war. We're going to finish it." The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Helios sector fortress was gone. Every battle station destroyed. Every defensive platform wrecked. Every Vakari ship either dead or captured. Human ships moved through the wreckage, rescuing survivors where possible, finishing off crippled vessels where necessary. The human fleet had lost 47 ships and 23,000 crew. It was terrible, it hurt, but the Vakari had lost everything. An entire fortress system that had stood for centuries was now just debris and bodies. Admiral Suho broadcast a message to the Vakari homeworld. No demands, no negotiations. Just a simple timestamp showing when the next attack would occur, and underneath the timestamp a recording. The sound of children laughing playing in a schoolyard on Kepler 442b. A reminder of what the Vakari had destroyed. The Vakari High Council was shocked. They had expected human resistance. They had even expected some losses. But they had not expected this level of ferocity, this willingness to use weapons that the rest of the galaxy considered too barbaric, this cold efficiency in destroying everything in their path. They mobilized their core fleets. Thousands of ships, the pride of their empire, ships that had conquered systems and crushed rebellions. They would show these upstart humans what real military power looked like. The second major battle occurred in the Taros system, a major Vakari colony world with a population of 3 billion. The human fleet arrived first and issued a warning. All civilians were to evacuate immediately. Transport ships were given safe passage. Anyone remaining after 48 hours would be considered a military target. The Vakari High Council refused to evacuate. They believed the humans were bluffing, that humans with their reputation for mercy would never attack a populated world. They sent their fleet to defend Taros and waited for the humans to back down. When the 48 hours expired, the human fleet attacked. Not the planet itself, but every military installation in orbit, every shipyard, every defense platform, every military base on the surface. Weapons that could have destroyed the cities were carefully aimed at military targets only. The bombardment was precise and devastating. The Vakari fleet arrived to find their defenses already destroyed. They fought bravely. Their crews were skilled and their ships were powerful. But the humans had learned from the first battle. They adapted their tactics. They used swarms of small attack drones that overwhelmed the Vakari point defenses. They deployed artificial intelligence systems that coordinated attacks faster than biological crews could respond. And they used biological weapons, not against the civilian population, but targeting Vakari physiology specifically. The humans released agents that made Vakari crew violently ill, not fatal but incapacitating. Ships began to fail as their crews became too sick to operate them. The Galactic Council watched in horror. They sent urgent messages demanding that both sides cease hostilities. They threatened sanctions. They warned that humanity was crossing lines that should never be crossed. Secretary General Tajan's response was broadcast on every channel in known space. He stood in front of images from Kepler 442b. Burned buildings, dead children, destroyed homes. "You ask us to show restraint," he said, his voice cold. Where were you when the Vakari showed no restraint? Where were your urgent messages when they massacred 12,000 civilians? Where were your sanctions when they destroyed a colony that had never threatened them? He paused, letting the silence stretch. You watched them murder our children and did nothing. You expected us to accept it, to bow our heads and let the Vakari do whatever they wanted. You thought humanity's peace meant we were weak, that we would tolerate anything to avoid war. The images behind him changed, showing the destruction at Helios Sector, the wreckage at Taros, the Vakari ships burning in space. Now you see what we really are. The galaxy calls our weapons barbaric. Do you know why we have these weapons? Because we spent thousands of years using them on each other. We know every way there is to kill. Every tactic, every strategy, every weapon that makes killing efficient. We stopped using them because we chose to, because we wanted to be better. But make no mistake, we never forgot how. Over the next months, the pattern continued. The human fleet struck systematically. They didn't occupy territory. They destroyed it. Vakari military bases were reduced to rubble. Their shipyards were wrecked. Their trade routes were blockaded. Self-replicating mines made entire systems impassable. The Vakari economy began to collapse. The Vakari tried everything. They used their superior numbers, their advanced technology, their centuries of tactical experience. But humans fought without honor, without mercy, without following any rules the Vakari recognized. They attacked supply lines. They destroyed infrastructure. They made war not on armies, but on the capacity to make war. Captain Deho stood on his bridge after another successful attack, watching another Vakari system burn. His crew was exhausted. They had been fighting for months. Many had friends who had died. Everyone had seen things that would give them nightmares for years. Sir, we're receiving new orders, his communication officer said. The Vakari High Council is requesting negotiations. They want to discuss terms for peace. Deho looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was now positioned at the edge of the Vakari core systems. One more jump would put them at the homeworld itself. 15 billion Vakari lived there. The weapons were ready. The targeting solutions were calculated. Tell them Admiral Suho will meet with them, Deho said. But the fleet stays ready. We've come too far to stop now unless the terms are right. The message was sent. The Vakari had learned their lesson. They had thought humans were weak because they chose peace. Now they understood. Mercy was not weakness. It was a choice, and humanity had chosen to take it back. The human fleet held position at the edge of the Vakari home system. On every screen, every tactical display, every targeting computer, the same planet appeared. The Vakari homeworld, 15 billion lives, the heart of an empire that had lasted 3,000 years. Admiral Suho stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance. He was tired. 11 months of war had aged him. His son was still dead. 23,000 human crew members had died in the fighting. The Vakari had lost hundreds of thousands, but the war could end today. One way or another, the Vakari High Council appeared on the communication screen. 10 ancient beings who had ruled their empire for centuries. They looked smaller now, less arrogant. They had watched their military shattered, their economy destroyed, their people terrified. They had started this war believing humanity was weak. Now they knelt before the proof of their mistake. We request terms for peace, the High Council speaker said. The translation came through flat and emotionless, but everyone could hear the defeat in the words. You murdered 12,000 civilians, Suho replied. You destroyed an entire colony. You killed children. What terms do you think you deserve? The speaker hesitated. We acted to defend our territorial claims. We did not expect such a response. We underestimated humanity. You murdered children to make a point about a territorial dispute, Suho said, his voice hard. You broadcast your atrocity as a warning. You expected us to bow our heads and accept it. Now you want mercy? Why should we give you what you refused to give us? Behind Suho, Commander Jiho stood quietly. He was the last commander of Kepler 442b. The man who had pulled his daughter's body from the rubble. He had survived the massacre only to spend 11 months watching the galaxy burn in response. His hand rested near a control panel. One authorization. That's all it would take. One order and the weapons would fire. 15 billion Vakari would die, the same way 12,000 humans had died. Please, the speaker said. We acknowledge our mistake. We will accept any terms. Just spare our homeworld. Any terms? Suho asked. Yes. Anything. Suho pulled up the terms that Earth Assembly had prepared. They were harsh, brutal, the kind of terms imposed on an enemy that needed to remember their defeat forever. The Vakari Empire will be reduced to 3 systems, your core worlds only. All colonies will be surrendered. Your military will be limited to defensive forces only. No warships, no offensive weapons. You will pay reparations for 50 years. Your economy will be monitored by human observers. The disputed asteroid belt will be ceded to humanity, and you will build a monument on Kepler 442b, listing every name of every person you killed. The High Council members looked at each other. Their empire was being dismantled. Everything they had built over 3,000 years would be stripped away. But they were alive. Their world would survive. We accept, the speaker said. There's one more thing, Jiho said, stepping forward. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him. The families of Kepler 442b, we want you to meet them, to see their faces, to hear their names, every single one. You will watch recordings of their lives. You will know who they were, what they loved, what they dreamed about, and you will remember that they were real people, not just numbers in your tactical reports. The speaker bowed his head. We accept this as well. Suho looked at Jiho. They both knew that they could end this differently. The weapons were ready. The targeting was locked. One order and the Vakari homeworld would burn. An eye for an eye. 12,000 for 15 billion. It would be justice in the cruelest sense. Sir, Jiho said quietly, we could do it. We could make them understand what they did. Make them feel it the way we felt it. Suho thought of his son, Yunho's face, his laugh, the way he had talked about his research with such passion. He thought of Nari, the little girl with the glowing crystal. All the children who would never grow up. All the futures that had been erased. We could, Suho agreed. And part of me wants to. Part of me thinks they deserve it. That justice demands it. He looked at the planet on the screen. Somewhere down there, Vakari children were playing. Vakari parents were holding their families. Vakari people were living their lives terrified of what might happen next. But if we do it, we become them. We prove that humans are exactly what the galaxy feared, that we're monsters wearing a mask of civilization, that our peace was fake and our mercy was a lie. Jiho closed his eyes. He thought of Nari. What would she think if she could see him now? Would she want revenge? Or would she want her father to be better than the people who killed her? My daughter was 8 years old, he said. She liked exploring caves and collecting crystals. She wanted to be a scientist. She was kind to everyone she met. If she was here, she wouldn't want this. She wouldn't want 15 billion deaths on her conscience. His hand moved away from the control panel. Accept the terms, Suho told the High Council. Sign the treaty. Build the monument, and pray that humanity never has reason to come back. The treaty was signed within hours. The Vakari Empire began its dissolution immediately. Ships were decommissioned. Territories were surrendered. Reparations began flowing to human worlds. The war was over, but everything had changed. The galaxy looked at humanity differently now. The friendly traders who had been so eager to learn and share were still there. But everyone now knew what else lived beneath that surface. The weapons that humans had hoped never to use. The tactics they had promised to leave in their past. The cold calculation that came with thousands of years of practicing warfare on themselves. The monument was built on Kepler 442b. 12,000 names carved in black stone that would never erode. Each name had a small holographic display next to it, showing a photo and a brief description. Nari's entry showed her holding her glowing crystal, smiling at the camera. The description read simply, age 8. Wanted to be a scientist. Liked exploring and helping others. At the center of the monument, carved in letters 3 meters tall, was a message in every major galactic language. Humanity tried mercy. Do not mistake it for weakness. Other species began treating humans with a new kind of respect. Not the polite tolerance they had shown before. Real respect, born from fear and understanding. They had seen what humans could do when pushed. Nobody wanted to push them again. The Galactic Council issued a formal apology for their neutrality during the massacre. They admitted they should have acted, should have condemned the Vakari immediately, should have stood with the victims instead of trying to appear impartial. It was too late, but at least they acknowledged their failure. Trade continued. Diplomacy resumed. The galaxy moved forward. But there was an understanding now. Humans were part of the galactic community not because they were harmless, but because they chose to be peaceful. That choice could be revoked. Jiho returned to Earth. He couldn't stay on Kepler 442b. The rebuilt colony held too many ghosts. He retired from military service and became a teacher, working with children who had lost parents in the war. He told them about Nari, about her curiosity and kindness, about how she represented the best of humanity, not the worst. Every week he visited a memorial garden in Seoul where her name was carved among thousands of others. He would sit there for hours, the glowing crystal in his hands. It still pulsed with soft blue light, a reminder of a little girl who had wanted to explore the universe and help people. "We did it for you," he would whisper to the stone. "We made them remember. We made them understand that every life matters, that you can't just kill people and expect no consequences." But then he would think about the war, the death, the destruction, the Vakari families torn apart just like his had been, and he would wonder if Nari would have approved, if she would have understood why it had to happen, or if she would have asked why they couldn't find another way. He never found an answer to that question. Maybe there wasn't one. Maybe some things didn't have good answers. Maybe sometimes you just had to choose between bad options and live with the consequences. What he knew for certain was that the mask of mercy had not been discarded. Humanity still chose peace when possible, still tried diplomacy first, still worked to be better than their violent history, but the mask had been adjusted. Everyone could see it now for what it was. A choice, not a limitation, not a weakness. A deliberate decision to be kind until kindness became impossible. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had proven what they were capable of when their children were murdered. And every species with any sense would make sure it never happened again. Years later, Jiho was invited to speak at a galactic peace conference. Representatives from dozens of species came to hear the human who had survived Kepler 442b and then helped end the war without committing genocide. "People ask me if the war was worth it," he told the assembled delegates. "If the price we paid was justified by the outcome. I think about my daughter, about her laugh, about her dreams, about who she might have become if she had lived. And I think about all the Vakari children who are alive today, because we chose mercy over revenge." He held up the glowing crystal so everyone could see it. "This was my daughter's. She found it exploring caves on a world that doesn't exist anymore. It still glows. A small light in the darkness. That's what mercy is. A choice to keep a light burning even when everything else is dark."